quiet town is thrown into chaos as a new wave of murders begins. The local high school descends into panic as students receive threatening phone calls. Sidney Prescott returns to Woodsboro to assist the police in the investigation. A mysterious figure wearing a ghost-face mask stalks the town from the shadows. Old allies and new characters come together, forced to confront resurfacing fears. Dark secrets from Woodsboro's past begin to merge with the present killings. The tension explodes as the first brutal murder occurs in a secluded area. Sidney teams up with Dewey and Gale to uncover the killer's identity. They revisit old crime scenes in search of hidden clues and connections. New characters, including a brave teen and an investigative reporter, join the chase. Suspicion spreads as townspeople begin doubting one another. Phone calls and cryptic messages heighten the terror. Another shocking murder takes place during a late-night party. The killer's actions seem disturbingly tied to Sidney's past. A new generation of teens starts uncovering the buried secrets of Woodsboro. A group of friends finds an old diary revealing motives of past killers. Paranoia intensifies as trust breaks apart within the group. The killer manipulates victims using social media and anonymous messages. Sidney confronts emotional wounds tied to her history with Ghostface. A close friend narrowly escapes an ambush, raising the stakes. Fear divides the survivors, deepening the mystery. The group plans a trap to catch the killer during a Halloween festival. Security cameras, staged phone calls, and decoys raise the tension. The killer outsmarts every move, proving their intelligence and brutality. Jump scares and sudden attacks create chaos among the crowd. Gale discovers a hidden room filled with evidence from past murders. Sidney begins to suspect the killer might be someone close to her. A shocking act of betrayal leaves the survivors in grave danger. Climax. Sidney faces Ghostface in a brutal final confrontation. Hidden rooms, trapdoors, and sudden attacks intensify the showdown. Flashbacks to previous Scream murders heighten the emotional tension. A final twist exposes the killer's shocking true identity. Sidney relies on her instincts and experience to survive. The town begins to heal, but eerie shadows suggest the horror isn't truly over. A final tease hints at future threats in the next sequel. The police tighten security around the town, but Ghostface continues to strike boldly. Sidney warns the teens that the killer always targets those who underestimate danger. A chilling voicemail reveals the killer has been watching them for weeks. Dewey grows suspicious of a new deputy whose stories never add up. Strange symbols appear on school lockers, hinting at a deeper motive. Fear spreads as multiple students disappear overnight. Sidney realizes the killer is recreating events from the original Woodsboro murders. Gale interviews old residents who witnessed past killings, uncovering forgotten details. A chilling pattern emerges. Each victim resembles someone from Sidney's past. The group starts monitoring each other as paranoia spirals. Ghostface leaves a taunting message written in blood near a crime scene. A frantic chase through the woods leaves one teen injured but alive. Sidney confronts Dewey about his suspicions, causing tension between them. The killer grows more brutal, making the town feel hunted. The survivors gather at Sidney's temporary safe house. Security cameras are installed, motion sensors activated, doors reinforced. Despite precautions, Ghostface manages to breach the property's perimeter. Sidney finds a threatening message left inside the living room. Camera footage reveals that the killer was inside the house hours before they arrived. The group realizes nowhere in Woodsboro is truly safe. Gale vows to expose the killer's identity no matter the cost. A mysterious flash drive is left on Sidney's doorstep. Contains footage of victims being stalked days before their murders. The killer's voice, distorted and mocking, narrates each clip. One video shows someone inside Sidney's childhood home. Dewey suspects an accomplice might be involved. Old case files reveal a possible connection to a long-lost Woodsboro resident. Fear deepens as Sidney realizes the killer knows everything about her past. The teens discover a hidden tunnel system beneath Woodsboro. Graffiti of Ghostface symbols coat the walls like a shrine. Photos of victims are pinned everywhere, organized in disturbing patterns. Sidney follows the tunnel to an abandoned film studio used decades ago. Old scream-like masks and props litter the floor. It becomes clear the killer is obsessed with the town's murderous legacy. A sudden attack forces the survivors to flee narrowly. The town's electricity shuts down after a mysterious grid failure. Darkness blankets the streets, giving Ghostface the advantage. Survivors gather at the high school gym for shelter. Panic spreads as they hear footsteps and whispers in the dark. Sydney tries to keep order, but fear overwhelms the group. Screams erupt as Ghostface attacks from the shadows. The survivors barely escape through a back exit. A storm hits Woodsboro, intensifying the chaos. Lightning reveals Ghostface standing across rooftops in the rain. Sydney deduces the killer's motives relate to a decades-old unsolved case. Gail discovers a diary belonging to the original mastermind behind the killings. The diary describes a successor who was trained to finish the legacy. The group realizes they are dealing with the heir of a past killer. A sudden storm blackout leaves them isolated once again. Sydney revisits her old family home to face her past. Memories flood back as she explores her childhood bedroom. Ghostface calls her, revealing he's been inside the house recently. Old photographs are rearranged into a horrifying pattern on the floor. Dewey and Gail rush to the house but arrive moments too late. A deadly struggle erupts in the living room. Sydney survives, but she is left emotionally shattered. The survivors trace the killer's hideout to an old cinema. The theater is filled with props from the original Ghostface murders. An eerie recording plays on loop, mocking Sydney and her friends. Blood-stained seats and slasher symbols cover the walls. The group splits up to search the building, a fatal mistake. Ghostface ambushes one of them in a shocking attack. Sydney barely saves another member of the group. The killer reveals himself through a chilling broadcast. His mask is a modified Ghostface design with glowing cracks. He declares Woodsboro must pay for burying the truth. Sydney recognizes the voice as a descendant of a previous murderer. The town erupts in chaos as residents realize the danger is far from over. Dewey organizes a final stand at the sheriff's station. Ghostface launches a full-scale attack on the building. A brutal battle erupts inside the sheriff's station. Ghostface moves with deadly precision, eliminating officers quickly. Sydney engages in a fierce fight in the hallway. Gail discovers critical evidence that exposes the killer's lineage. Dewey nearly sacrifices himself to save the group. The station collapses into chaos as the killer escapes. Sydney vows to end this once and for all. The survivors track Ghostface to an isolated farmhouse. The barn is filled with trophies taken from every victim. A disturbing shrine dedicated to Sydney stands at the center. Ghostface appears, taunting the group with twisted revelations. A deadly game of cat and mouse unfolds in the darkness. Sydney confronts the killer's obsession head-on. The farmhouse becomes a battleground of survival. Ghostface traps Sydney in a cellar packed with old weapons. He reveals he was trained from childhood to continue the legacy. Sydney uses his arrogance against him, triggering a hidden trap. A fierce fight breaks out in the narrow space. The killer's mask cracks during the struggle, revealing his identity. Sydney escapes the collapsing cellar just in time. The killer limps away, refusing to die easily. The final showdown moves to the farmhouse rooftop during the storm. Rain and lightning illuminate the bloody confrontation. Sydney gains the upper hand but hesitates to deliver the final blow. Ghostface reveals one last horrifying truth about her past. With emotional strength, Sydney ends the legacy once and for all. The killer falls into the darkness below. Silence returns as the storm begins to fade. The sun rises over Woodsboro, signaling the end of the nightmare. Survivors gather, exhausted but relieved to be alive. Sydney reflects on the endless cycle of violence tied to her life. Gail prepares a new book titled Shadows Return. Dewey assures the town that peace will be restored. As Sydney drives away, a broken Ghostface mask lies on the road. The camera lingers, hinting that evil may one day return.